The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday, February 9th. It's been a while, huh? You guys miss me? I think you did. Anyway, I am back home for the next almost 3 weeks. Then I go on the road again. But yeah, I'm here for the foreseeable future. So we will be having lots of fun and lots of shows. And yeah, anyway, show is on. I was in, where was I? Florida, Boston, Texas. Good trip. Lots done. I will be posting the video of the talk I gave in Austin at some point. I'm waiting for the host, Civitas Institute, to post it on their site. And then hopefully we'll get a copy and we'll post it on the Yaron Brook Show site. So you can look forward to that. It was a good talk, I think, about America, what it is. Reminder, we are going to have Greg Salmieri on later today, 7 p.m. East Coast time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have Greg on. And so that's always interesting and fun, and we can go deep. And remember, all those questions you asked me, and I said, ask a philosopher. Well, this is your chance. Ask a philosopher. Any questions about ancient Greece, ancient Greek philosophy, questions about philosophy more broadly, epistemology, and of course the topics we'll be talking about today, including his new book, and including, what did we title it? Something about how do you interpret how America today, and how do we get here? So kind of a broad perspective on American history, ideas, and an evaluation of the state of the world or the state of America today. So tune in. Greg Salmieri. This should be a lot of fun. Anything else I need to tell you? I don't think so. I think we're all good. And we can jump in. Yes, one last thing, and I'll remind you maybe later. Soon to be announced, I will be doing a seminar in London. It'll be a small group, 4+ hours, including we'll all go out to dinner afterwards so we can hang out in London on February 28th. The topic will be capitalism. Everything you want to know and we're afraid to ask about capitalism. I'll take any questions you have, any issues you want to raise. I'll be posting information about that really soon on my website, but I'll also announce it here with the links of everything to sign up and to register and all that. Hopefully by tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest, there'll be information on signing up. But please put Saturday, February 28th aside on your calendar. It'll be, I think like last time, 300 pounds. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you. Hopefully you can get like 10 people, 12 people, 8 people, whatever the interest is. And we'll be able to hang out an afternoon. You can ask me anything about capitalism and related stuff. And then we'll go to dinner and then we'll just have free conversation, and that'll be fun to get to know each other. So there'll be a social element to this as well. I won't be buying you dinner, but other than, but you'll get my time. All right. I'll figure out where to go as well. It'll be somewhere in central London, so hopefully easy to get to. Maybe some hotel we did last time. All right. Let's get going. Yesterday was the Super Bowl. It was a pretty boring Super Bowl, I think. I only saw bits and pieces. I tried to watch it on the flight, on the plane, and the Wi-Fi wasn't that great. But it did stream some of it, but it seemed pretty boring. New England Patriots played pretty abysmally, particularly on offense. So it was a defense-oriented game, and who likes those? That's not fun. And then the halftime show, of course, which generated a lot of political angst and conflict and frustration, and even a competing halftime show put on by Turning Point USA with Kid Rock. Woo! So you had 2 shows going on. So I missed the halftime show, but then when I got home, my wife showed it to me. So we rewinded and saw the whole thing in Spanish. And I don't know. I don't like Bad Bunny. I don't know about you guys, but I find the music uninspiring, uninteresting. I don't know. But then that's true of almost everybody who ever appears on the halftime shows. So completely uninspiring and uninteresting. I found the kind of storytelling involved was kind of cute. It was all about Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rico stuff. As I live here, so it was interesting. Like there was a whole song dedicated to the fact that we have power outages all the time. He even climbs the electricity pole. Cool. I mean, recognition of our pain every time the electricity goes out. I appreciated that. But anyway, most of these Super Bowl halftime shows I find completely uninteresting and uninspiring, and I don't like. Even when the artists are, reasonable, and I like their music offline. At the Super Bowl, it just, yeah. Anyway, it's just uninteresting. So aesthetically, I mean, Lady Gaga was there. She has a great voice. What's his name was there? I forget. Martin was there. He has a good voice, but it's just not my music and not my style, and I'm not. But that's, of course, not why everybody's talking about Bad Bunny. They're talking about Bad Bunny because the White House flipped out about this show. Now, when it was announced, it was like, how dare they, right? Bad Bunny is not a real American, no heritage. His ancestors did not fight in the Civil War or the War of Independence. As far as I know, who knows, actually. But he's from Puerto Rico, which is kind of America, but not really from the perspective of the White House. Puerto Ricans are not, even though they have passports and they're officially Americans, they're not legit Americans because they're not, heritage Americans. So he's not a heritage American. Of course, neither was Shakira. Neither were many of the artists, who've appeared in Super Bowl. Super Bowl ads. Let's say Rihanna is not a U.S. citizen, Shakira not a U.S. citizen, Coldplay not U.S. citizens, The Who not U.S. citizens, Rolling Stones not U.S. citizens, Paul McCartney, I think still not a U.S. citizen, U2 not U.S. citizens. How could that be? Bad Bunny, actually a U.S. citizen, but he's saying in Spanish. That is very unpatriotic and not right and no good. Now look. Bad Bunny has bad politics. I mean, really awful. I don't like him. He's very socialist. I think he would work kafir if he could and everything else. But he's the most streamed artist in the world, the most popular artist in the world right now. He's big. And the fact that he sings in Spanish, who cares? So good for having Bad Bunny. I mean, whoever is Shakira's politics? Shakira, who some of his songs I actually like. I mean, it's awful. It's horrible. She's a leftist nut, and really anti-Israel, pro-Hamas. I don't know about The Who. I can only guess. I don't know about the Rolling Stones. I can only guess. I don't know about any of these people's politics. And for that matter, I don't really care. I don't listen to music for politics. I don't listen to music for their political statements. I'm not interested in what celebrities have to say about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or about any frigging other thing in the world. They're fairly ignorant. They're on it. I don't know. They're singers or movie stars or whatever it happens to be. So their politics don't matter to me. I mean, the Super Bowl invited him because he's the biggest star out there. Why wouldn't they? And indeed, supposedly the ratings in terms of halftime, it was the most watched halftime performance of all time. 135 million views. That, I think, is only US, doesn't include international. So they got a huge return on their advertising revenue, and the NFL is happy, and the NFL has a lot of Hispanic fans. And so he's saying in Spanish. Who cares? Half the time when these singers sing in the Super Bowl and they claim to be singing in English, you can't make out anything they say. And even when you do, it doesn't frigging mean anything. Oh, Linda hasn't heard of Bad Bunny. Oh, my God. I mean, Bad Bunny's huge. I mean, this is what somebody wrote. Bad Bunny is a demonic Marxist who has been granted the largest stage with the greatest audience in the middle of a Christian revival. That's what they really are pissed off at. This is by design. We are in a spiritual war, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. I mean, again, every one of those other bands are probably just as leftist as Bad Bunny. What upsets them is that he's from Puerto Rico. What upset Trump? And Trump made it in a MAGA thing. Nobody else would have cared. What a ridiculous, Kid Rock got 6 million views. I mean, which is pretty, that's a lot. I wish I got 6 million views. But Kid Rock on TPSU, I mean, Kid Rock snuck in a bunch of Christian lyrics into his songs. I mean, is that really, and do we know Bad Bunny's not a Christian? Do we know he's not like a Catholic Marxist? That wouldn't be that strange. I mean, this is Donald Trump. I mean, you just get the vitriol. Super Bowl halftime show is absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. It makes no sense and an affront to the greatness of America and doesn't represent our standards of success, creativity, and excellence. But that's true of every Super Bowl show. When did they ever celebrated American genius, skyscrapers, scientists, startups, innovation, Silicon Valley? That's not what rock and roll does, or for that matter, any popular music does. He continues, nobody understands a word this guy's saying. Nobody understands anything. Any of these, do you guys understand the lyrics of half the heavy metal bands that you listen to? You can't hear them. It's all muscled, mumbled, Anyway, nobody understands a word this guy's saying, and dancing is disgusting. Did you see the dancing with Shakira and Rihanna? Was it any different? It's exactly the same dancing, especially for young children that are watching from throughout the United States and all over the world. That's true of almost all halftime shows. This show is just a slap in the face to our country, which is setting new standards and records every day, including the best stock market and 401ks in history. That's relevant. There is nothing inspirational about this mess of a halftime show, and watch. It will get great reviews from the fake news media because they haven't got a clue of what is going on in the real world. And by the way, the NFL should immediately replace its ridiculous new kickoff rule. Make America great again. I'm glad, the president wants to run the NFL as well as everything else. Yes, if awful music was the standard, all of the halftime shows that I've ever seen would be pretty much disqualified. This was, in many ways, more wholesome. It kind of was a day-to-day life in Puerto Rico, discussing the challenges and life of people in the thing. I mean, it's not inspirational, but it was not the kind of decadence that you saw in the past. So get a life, get over it, MAGA. And look, it's all tinged by racism, ultimately. It's all tinged by racism. The fact that he sang in Spanish, unacceptable. But anyway, as I said, more watched halftime show than probably any other in history. Now, there was a reference in Bad Bunny to God Bless America in his show, to God Bless America. Do you know who wrote God Bless America? It sounds like a big patriotic song. But God Bless America was a song written by a Jew, a Jewish immigrant from Russia, whose original name was Israel Balin, and he changed it to Irving Berlin, became one of the great songwriters in American history. His family had fled anti-Jewish pogroms, settled and reached New York in 1893. And he wrote God Bless America as a gratitude, as a song of gratitude. Thank you, America. It's another one of those little contributions that immigrants, I mean, we're all immigrants to some extent, so immigrants have made to this country. That song that sounds so American was written by a Russian, Russian-born. Anyway, American. So, Kudabayas Tom Petty was good. I don't remember, and I doubt that. I mean, Tom Petty might be an excellent musician, but in the Super Bowl, it all gets drowned out. It's a show. It has nothing to do with music. And the show is just as average and bizarre, uninspiring as all the others. All right, let's see. I mean, JGB says you couldn't see the show from the stadium because it's all hidden. I mean, that's true of all these shows, their stages, their props. What they have are giant screens. So everybody in the stadium saw everything they needed to see. So, oh, and by the way, there was a wedding in the show, and that wedding actually happened. That is, that couple got married live right there in the show, and that was their wedding party. So cool for them. That was pretty amazing. So don't worry about the people at the stadium. They didn't get their money's worth vis-a-vis the football game, but they I'm sure it was pretty cool. I'm sure it was pretty cool. The halftime show was pretty cool. All right. It's just the Trump disgusting racism stuff. Although, of course, that could have been applied to Rihanna and to Shakira, but this is an American citizen. But talking about racism, I didn't comment on it, but it didn't comment on this, but it did happen last week. I thought I'd mention it quickly because it was significant. Because the one time some Republicans actually stood up to Donald Trump, shockingly, was when Trump posted the video, which I couldn't believe. I saw it on Twitter, and it was like, really? I mean, I could believe it because it's so Donald Trump. He posted a video of Michelle and the Obamas basically apes with the Obamas' faces on them dancing around. The incident blew up with this, and he was accused of racism. Finally, it's only taken, since 2017 or 17, to figure out that this guy's a racist. Wake up, America, to the reality of who your president is. So it went viral. Even some Republicans criticized him. Tim Scott, who happens to be black, senator, I think, for South Carolina, criticized Trump for the first time, I think, on record, ever. A word of criticism from Tim Scott to Donald Trump. He actually said it was a racist thing to do. Trump says he didn't see he didn't see the part of the video with the racist clip depicting Obamas as apes. He didn't actually catch that. He claims that a staffer did it. It wasn't him. It was a staffer. That staffer that stays up between 1 and 3 a.m. To post all of Donald Trump's rants, because that, of course, couldn't be Donald Trump himself. That's the staffers, and there's no quality control, I guess, on the staffer. Anyway, yeah. Blame the staffer. And Trump says he didn't make the mistake. Of course, Trump basically says he never makes mistakes. Trump says it's impossible for him to make a mistake because what Trump says is truth, is right. So mistakes are impossible for Trump. But yeah, he refuses to apologize. And the video is about a minute long. It mentions the fact that Trump did win, indeed, the 2020 election. if not for voter fraud. And of course, at the end of the clip about that, there's the Obama faces superimposed on a cartoon of apes with the songs "Lion Sleeps Tonight." And the video was removed a few hours later once it exploded in his face, and even again his allies were criticizing him. But when he was asked if he was going to apologize to Obama, he says, "No, I didn't make a mistake." He says, "I looked at the beginning of it and it was fine." So typical. This is a Trump that takes no responsibility over anything that happens. There's no buck stops here, even if it was a staffer who did it. Trump will never apologize, never take responsibility. You know, he said, "I looked in the first part of it. It was really about voter fraud and the machines, how crooked it is, how disgusting it is. Then I gave it to the people. Generally, they look at the whole thing, but I guess somebody didn't, and they posted." Yeah, right. We took it down as soon as we found out about it. Yeah, I mean, this is, this is the quality of this president. This is the quality of this White House. The press secretary, originally, when the first revelation of this video came out, she was defending this and was making fun of the kind of the mock outrage coming from the critics. Then, of course, said it was a mistake and deleted it. But first response is always defend Trump. First response was, yeah, it's ours. Trump, you guys are criticizing something that isn't really there. Yeah. She said, "Please stop the outrage and report on something today that actually matters to the American public." That was the press secretary before announcing that they deleted it a few hours later. So, no apology, no taking responsibility, not from this president. You're not going to get it ever. Just won't happen. This is the president who is, he's a racist, so why would a video like this shock anybody or surprise anybody, put it that way? What's shocking is that he would think he could put it out there with no response because he's been given so much slack from so many people who've enabled him that he thinks he can get away with anything. But that's really what it is. It's all the people from Ben Shapiro on to almost every single House member, almost every single senator, maybe the exception of Massey and Rand Paul, giving him so much slack that he thinks he can get away with anything, particularly on the race issue. Nobody has stood up to him, not since Charlottesville. And I know you think I don't understand what was said in Charlottesville. I've done a textual analysis of it. Put that video together, put it up online. I haven't seen anybody actually go through my video and say, "No, Yaron, no, Yaron, you are wrong." I haven't seen anybody do that. Watch my video. If just put Yaron Brook Charlottesville and you'll find it. If you doubt, I went through every line, so you can't say I skipped anything. But you can see my analysis there. He has been appealing to the racists for very, 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 really since the beginning of the campaign, since he came down the escalator and went after he went after the Hispanic judge. All right, let's talk about Iran. So on Friday, the United States team, the brilliant, unmatched negotiating team of Witkoff and Kushner met with the Iranians in order to pursue a deal that would eliminate Iran's nuclear program, move Iran's uranium out of the country, shrink its ballistic missile program, stop its funding of, Islamist groups around the Middle East. And basically, the Iranians shut it all down. They basically said, no, we're not going to cut missile system. We're not going to stop refining uranium. We're not going to do anything that the United States asks. But don't worry. They're going to meet again this week. So not to worry. Negotiations are continuing because we know, Witkoff has a track record. He evil bends when it sees Witkoff. It just bends. It just gives in immediately. I mean, think about Russia. It's agreed to withdraw from Ukraine, right? Oh, wait, no. I don't think it has. So Witkoff negotiating with Putin hasn't gone well, has it? I don't think so. Russia announced I think over the weekend that not only was it not going to withdraw any troops from Ukraine, it was not going to cede any territory, and it would refuse to accept any security guarantees that involve the positioning of foreign troops in Ukrainian land. Go, Witkoff. Hamas this weekend also said, Witkoff has had this incredible success with Hamas, right? He's been so good at negotiating with Hamas. We should add to his portfolio of negotiation because he is the master. He has read The Art of the Deal at least 24 times, and he knows exactly how to do this. Hamas this weekend said, oh, no, absolutely no disarmament. You got to be kidding. Not only are we not going to disarm, we're not going to accept any authority, there's not Palestinian over the Gaza Strip, so get rid of your board of peace and all that stuff. That will have no authority over us in Gaza. So, yeah, I guess he's going 0 for 2. And then if you take the fact that on Friday, Iran refused to give up uranium enrichment, that's 0 for 3. Witkoff is a loser, another loser, attached to the grand poobah of all losers, Donald Trump. It's a pretty bleak situation that we have going on. Anyway, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on with Iran's strategy. I mean, you could make an argument that what Trump is really doing through the negotiation is just delay tactics. It's just delaying, and he has every intention to strike Iran as assets are positioned in the Middle East. Indeed, as far as I can tell, additional F-35s were flown into the Middle East to be positioned in the Middle East, last night, and are there now. They continue to deploy missile defense systems all over the Middle East. Indeed, the United States has never, not since I think the Gulf War, has the United States has as much military hardware in the Middle East as it does right now. This is a much bigger deployment than what occurred when the U.S. bombed the nuclear site in Iran, which brings up the question: if that bombing completely destroyed Iran's ability to process uranium, why do we need another strike now? Turns out that mission was not as successful as Trump would have liked you to believe. Indeed, if you remember, the day after the mission, or 2 days after, the U.S. military intelligence came out with a report saying this has probably slowed down the Iranians by months, not years or decades like the administration is claiming. And that report was immediately shut down, and people who leaked it were attacked. Anyway, they went after them. But it looks like that was probably the more accurate report. One bombing ain't going to do it. So it could be that what is going on right now is that the Trump administration is letting negotiations play out while it puts all the assets it needs in place in order to organize a sustained, lengthy attack on Iran, plus protection of the Hormuz Straits, protection of oil tankers trying to leave the Gulf, which is probably the biggest leverage Iran has, is over the movement of oil tankers in the Gulf. So it's possible, and certainly American military assets are positioned in the Middle East to sustain a real significant attack against Iran. We've talked about this. Replacing or getting rid of the Iranian regime is a world-changing kind of event. It is a geopolitical earthquake. It changes everything geopolitically. It weakens Islamism. It weakens Russia. To some extent, even weakens China. It changes the dynamics on a geopolitical scale in a way that is really hard to overestimate, right? Hard to exaggerate, because it's so big. It would be so big. And it would be the best thing Trump could do geopolitically. He's not going to do much in China and Russia. Russia, he's doing a lot of bad. Iran could be huge. I don't think Trump or his people see it that way. They see an attack on Iran as a liability. It could drag them into war. It could cause oil prices to spike in the short run. It could lead to a civil war in Iran, which they would then own. It could lead to significant damage to U.S. allies in Saudi Arabia and in other parts of the Gulf. That's why these other countries are not supporting the strike. It's because they fear the U.S. won't go all the way and actually eliminate the regime. So Trump has kind of got himself cornered into this by promising the demonstrators that he would help them, and by promising Israel that he wouldn't let Iran get a nuke and everything like that. But so all this could be delay tactics. I worry, though, because Israel seems worried. Netanyahu has decided to come to Washington about 2 weeks ahead of schedule to meet with Trump in 2 days to try to convince him to get off his diplomatic track. Netanyahu also wants a green light from the United States that even if the U.S. won't attack, Israel, the United States won't stop Israel from attacking. Israel is ready to attack Iran and has prepped its people. The people are ready for the backlash, the Iranian missiles raining in on Israel. There's basically uniformity across Israel. There's agreement that this Israel attacking Iran is necessary. So he's coming here to the U.S. to speak to Trump. He seems a little desperate. He seems a little worried that if he doesn't do that, Trump might cut some kind of deal with the Iranians, which would be a catastrophe. Any deal with the Iranians is going to be a catastrophe. So I think we are still in a wait-and-see position. I don't know if Trump has already made up his mind or not. He probably hasn't. He hopes for a deal. The Iranians are not going to give up on the nuclear. They're certainly not going to give up on the ballistic missiles or on supporting their proxies. I mean, that is the whole essence of the regime, is they need the missiles to protect themselves. And their proxies are part of the global jihad, which they believe in. I mean, the Iranian regime is not accidentally jihadi. The Iranian regime is, by its very nature, by its foundation, by its very essence, a jihadi regime, a regime that believes in bringing jihad and bringing Islam and bringing Islam to world domination. Sharia, they believe in this stuff. They don't want just their women to wear hijab. They want your women to wear the hijab. Your women. You women out there. You non-Iranian women out there. They are involved in a global attempt to bring Islam to every part of the world, and they won't settle. So now Iran is going to play the U.S. administration. It's going to go to meetings because it needs time. I don't know what time buys it, but I think what they think time buys is a chance for Trump to change his mind. If some other geopolitical event happens, some in the world that distracts him, I don't know, for something to happen in the United States which distracts him. Maybe Tucker Carlson can go and convince him not to bomb Iran. Who knows? They have nothing to lose by delaying, doing everything they can to delay the United States from attacking. And that's really, in essence, what you are seeing. You're seeing delay tactics on a massive scale by the Iranians, and the Americans buying into it. Again, people overestimate the capabilities of the Iranians. The United States had enough assets there, if you add in the Israelis, to do all the damage they need to Iran and to suffer very, very little damage on the other side from the Iranian ballistic missiles. People always overestimate the power of evil, overestimate the military capabilities of authoritarian or really totalitarian regimes. You saw what Israel did to them in 12-day war. It was a joke. I mean, they completely dominated the skies in Iran. And if Israel could do it, certainly the Americans could do it. Now, we will see. The Iranians have brought in a lot of Chinese tech. We'll see. Maybe they've upgraded their systems. I doubt it. I doubt that those systems will help them in a significant way. Israel is also worried. This is other worth mentioning. We talked about this before. But Israel's also worried that the United States' attack on Iran will be too little, won't be decisive enough, will be symbolic. What Iran needs is demolition. It needs to be its military capabilities, its governmental institutions to be turned into dust so that the regime will have no option. And ideally, they would kill Khamenei and kill his potential successors, like his son. Kill the mullahs, destroy the infrastructure of the regime, not just militarily, but spiritually as well. And if you do that, the Iranian people will take over. I don't believe there'll be a civil war. Persia has a long history of a multi-ethnic state. There's no reason to believe all the different ethnicities actually want their own independence, maybe with the exception of the Kurds. How exactly it coalesces, what brings it together. It could be the son of the Shah. It could be something else. But let the Iranian people figure that out. And maybe a civil war is part of what they'll need. But the first thing is get rid of the Revolutionary Guard, Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and get rid of the regime. And ethnic groups will figure this out. The variety of pretty significant non-Persian ethnic groups in Iran. But that's true of Persia throughout all its history. They've got along relatively well. This is not Iraq. This is not Libya. This is Persia, a land with an ancient, well-developed culture and civilization and history. All right. Now, this is not for the sake of the Iranian people, for those of you asking. This is for the sake of America. Finally. America's been at war with Iran since 1979. Iranians have killed Americans left and right. Iran has killed Americans, is developing ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Who do you think they're targeting with those? It's also essential for American interests in the Middle East. America has a strong interest in the ability of the Saudis and the Kuwaitis and the UAE to continue to export their oil into world markets. This is part of preserving the shipping lanes in that region of the world. The Iranian threat needs to be eliminated once and for all. This is a curse on America. It is an affront and a threat to America's self-interest, America's citizens' individual rights. It should be retribution for the taking of the embassy in 1979 not to mention all the dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds really, of Americans the Iranians have killed since then, murdered since then. So no, this isn't some kind of sacrificial thing for the Iranian people. I would say in that case, support them morally, send them weapons, but don't risk American lives and don't spend too much money on it. Otherwise, you become the policeman of the world and the bringer of liberty to everybody. That's not the job of America. But in this case, Iran is an explicit, unequivocal enemy of the United States. Indeed, the biggest enemy the United States has seen since 1979, and an enemy the U.S. has evaded since then. Now, hopefully it's gotten to a point where you can't evade it anymore. So finally do it, right? I've been calling for taking out, the Ayn Rand Institute has been calling out for taking out the Iranian regime since 1989. Ayn Rand called for it in after the hostages were taken. And certainly I believe that after 9/11, it should have been the primary target. But as you know, other than you guys, nobody listens to me. All right, that is Iran. God, we got a lot of topics today. All right, Japan. Wow, what an election. Just had an election for the lower house in Japan. This is like the House of Representatives in Japan. And the party of Prime Minister, Sane Takaichi, just won a landslide victory. They basically won a supermajority, them and their coalition partner. They have a supermajority now. They can potentially revise the Japanese constitution, which they've wanted to do, the conservatives in the party have wanted to do for decades. They can pass pretty much any law they want. And this is basically a big boost to Prime Minister Takaichi's agenda and program. And, again, a Japanese political party has not won such a majority, I think, since World War II. So this is huge. This is huge for her. Now, why? Because if you go back just a few months before the previous prime minister resigned and she was nominated, took over the position, her political party was unbelievably unpopular. It was unpopular. There was an insurgent populist political party that looked like it was going to do really, really well in the election. The previous leader, this is from the Liberal Democratic Party, right? This is her party, had to resign amid scandal and infighting, and things looked like they were horrible. And if there was an election, the LDP would lose. And here she is, just a few months later, winning a landslide victory. And it is fascinating to watch, because what is it about her, first woman prime minister in the history of Japan, that has achieved this? Now, at some level, she has become like a cult figure, like somebody that that everybody admires, respects. You've got people. She's got these pink pens, and now it's a huge fad in Japan to have these pink pens, and the particular handbag that she carries, everybody's carrying it around. But what is it that in 4 months has made her, this big, huge? I mean, merchandise depicting her is available all across the country, and people are wearing it and buying it. This is more than just a honeymoon period after she was elected prime minister. This is definitely different, basically, than any prime minister before. I mean, a poll found that 92% of 18 to 29-year-olds support her. She's not young. I don't know how old she is. She's not young. It's not that. So what is she? I mean, she's called the Iron Lady after Margaret Thatcher. She is dynamic. She comes across as principled, as strong, as pro-Japanese. And maybe, she's very conservative, which is kind of weird given her support among young people. She's much more socially conservative than her base. She supports a traditional patriarchal family structure, although she, of course, is the boss. Oh, she's my age. She's 64. So, she opposes gay marriage, but she is the first female leader ever. So she exudes strength, determination, initiative. But I think the real thing that has led to her popularity and led to this victory, and the reason why she called an election, she didn't have to call an election. She called an election because she sensed that she would win big. The big thing is she stood up to China. She has stood up to China at a time where I think a lot of people feel like Japan's era is setting, that it is becoming irrelevant, that its strength is dramatically diminishing, its population shrinking and dramatically aging, where its economic leadership is being way surpassed by the Chinese, at a time where people have people are really thinking of Chinese corporations and businesses in decline. She refuses to accept that. She has stood up to China in a big diplomatic spat over Taiwan. She basically said that Japan would help Taiwan if China invaded. And the Chinese flipped out. The Chinese stopped buying Japanese fish and they stopped buying anything Japanese. And while almost every other prime minister in the past would have folded, she didn't. She stood firm. She has advocated for a strong Japanese military, a military that can stand up to China, that can defend Japanese sovereignty over the chain of islands that China, not far from Taiwan, that China claims its territory. She's positioned missiles there that can reach mainland China. She's projected herself as a leader, not of a declining, weak, fading Japan, but as a strong Japan that can ally itself with the other free countries in that part of Asia, can ally itself with the United States and defend against Chinese authoritarianism. So, yeah, she is, she's strong, but she's also playful. She has these pink pens. She has these cool bags. She takes selfies. She has one with the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. She played drums in a heavy metal band as a college student. She rode a Kawasaki motorcycle before she entered politics. She doesn't come from a long line of, politicians, so she's not part of some political dynasty, as so many in Japanese politics have been. Her father was an automotive parts manufacturer. He worked for them. Her mother was a police officer. So she's modern, strong, for some reason socially conservative. Doesn't seem like it from her appearance, and is willing to stand up to China. One of the things that they want to change the Constitution is to take out the pacifist part of the Constitution that was placed there by General MacArthur, and make it possible for Japan to spend a lot more on its military. Japan today has probably the third strongest navy in the world after the United States and China. But imagine a Japan with a much stronger missile capability, missiles that can reach China, a much stronger missile defense system that can stop the hypersonics coming in, a Japan that has submarines and drones and drone submarines, drone ships that can interfere with the Chinese trying to take Taiwan or trying to invade a Japanese island. I mean, that changed the whole geopolitics of that region, and she is working towards that. The bad side about her is that she has, she's adopted a statist, I'd say conservative view of economics. She's not a free marketer. She believes government needs to spend more and tax less. Thus, she's big on deficit spending, which is a real problem in a Japan running some of the largest deficits and has some of the largest debt. She's anti-immigration in a country that needs immigrants. So my problem with her is there is a chance that, she fails economically. The economic strategy will not work. And as a consequence, Japanese economy will not do well long-term potentially. And that might make raising the money for the military harder, might make a politician like her less likely in the future, might make her unpopular ultimately. She's not Margaret Thatcher in her economic views. I wish she was. She's Margaret Thatcher in her kind of principled stance, but the principles are not always good. And in her stance, vis-a-vis China, Margaret Thatcher was vis-a-vis the Soviet Union. So we will see. We will see. She wants a proactive fiscal policy, but responsible, whatever the hell that means. But Japan has serious long-term economic problems. I mean, big ones. And there's nothing that she has proposed that suggests she's willing to deal with those problems. And she has, again, real problems with the fact that the population is shrinking and the working force is aging and therefore shrinking even faster than the population more broadly. You need vast amounts of money to fund everybody's retirement. So, some people think, given demographic trends, that by the end of the century, there are only going to be 50 million Japanese. 50 million. This is a country that was well over 100 million. What is the population of Japan? Good question. Japan population. Right now, there's 124 million, and I think it's been higher than that. And it's going to go down to 50? That's a real problem. I mean, not a problem for any particular individual Japanese, but if you think about the Japanese economy, if you think about fighting, if you think about the ability to defend themselves, it could be a problem. When did it peak? It peaked in, I think it peaked in 2022 at 125 million, and it's been going down since. Robots will fill in, but as I said, robots will create more jobs than they destroy, so that's not good. Somebody's going to have to do the rest of the jobs, and for that, you might need immigrants. Population do have booms and busts. There's no question about that, but there does seem to be a global bust right now. A global bust that is a challenge from a for nationalists and for conflict. And of course, it can be solved with immigration, so it's not really that big of a problem. The problem is for nationalists who don't want to solve it through immigration. But anyway. All right, anyway, a country to be watched, and certainly its conflict with China needs to be watched very, very carefully. Let's talk about India, from one Asian country to another. Donald Trump, I think about a week ago, but I hadn't done a show since then, announced that the United States and India had come to a trade deal. He had a phone call with Modi, and he said the United States will lower tariffs from 50 to 18%, and there was this deal. India would purchase $500 billion of U.S. goods over the next 5 years, and it would stop importing oil from Russia, and it would do all these other things. And in the meantime, India would lower tariffs to close to zero on most U.S. inputs, and so on, and all excitement. Of course, this was immediately after India cut a free trade deal with Europe, with the EU, massive, huge free trade deal with Europe, and a big free trade deal with, or it's negotiating a free trade deal with Canada. And Trump jumped in and wanted a deal finally with India. India's been seeking a deal for quite a while. The problem with this deal, as always, is the deal is an outline for a framework of a deal to be negotiated sometime in the future. There is no deal. There's a lot of stuff, but no actual deal. We don't actually know what's going to be part of the deal. Trump said that tariffs are going down from 50 to 18%. Okay, that's great. But that only applies to about 55% of Indian exports. What happens to the others? Right? He said that, but then it turns out it's only 55%. He said that India will now be buying Russian oil. But when India talks about the deal, it doesn't mention Russian oil. So, are they or aren't they? Now, it does seem like some refiners in India, because India, it's private businesses that buy the oil from Russia, some refiners are or not renewing shipments into, I think, April or May from Russia. But that could change. And we don't know, we've seen nothing to suggest that that is unequivocally new Indian policy. So is it the case that India will not buy Russian oil anymore? We don't know. Agricultural products, I mean, it claims that India is going to stop buying huge quantities of agricultural products from the United States. But India is a big agricultural producer. Does it really need to buy stuff from the United States? And, will Indian companies lobby against this? And actually, what's going to be in the deal? We just don't know. We don't know yet. Note how Trump is trying to take care of those farmers that he keeps screwing. And then if you look at the $500 billion purchase, India's a poor country. It has a lot of people. But most of them are very poor. Can they buy enough to make up $500 billion? Now, some of that will be spent on things like aircraft. That's an expensive item, so you can spend tens of billions on aircraft. Maybe, buying weapon systems. It's hard to tell. Maybe that's what'll take up most of this. But a lot of people are skeptical about whether this $500 billion number, like the trillions of dollars that Trump likes to throw out there, the numbers, whether that's real or whether pretend. So Trump, I think, was kind of pushed into cutting this deal as the rest of the world was dealing with India, and the United States, in a sense, was left out. But it's still not clear what the deal has. He keeps touting it. Still not clear what the deal involves. When India talks about the deal, it sounds differently than when Trump talks about the deal. We will just have to wait and see. And add to that, why are American citizens expected to pay an 18% tax on everything they buy from India? I say that again. Why are American citizens expected to pay an 18% tax on everything they buy from India? Because that's what a tariff is, a tax on Americans on stuff that they buy from overseas. Yeah, 50% was ridiculous. But why 18%? I mean, this is a great deal for India. They pay 0 tariffs on American stuff. Go India. It'll raise their standard of living. Why are we losing when they're gaining? All right. Just quickly an update on Jimmy Lai. I've talked about Jimmy Lai in the past. Jimmy Lai that owned Apple Media in Hong Kong was a big supporter of the freedom movement in Hong Kong, a big opponent of the Chinese. He was arrested under the Chinese kind of sedition law that of course violates his free speech rights and his individual rights and his right to his own life. There was a kind of a kangaroo court trial, and he's 78 years old. He's a billionaire who came to Hong Kong as a young child with nothing, literally the shirt on his back, but nothing, and has become one of the richest people in the world, and incredibly successful, and a fighter for freedom and liberty. And not that I agree with him on everything. He's Catholic, for example. And yet, he could have left Hong Kong when the Chinese came. He could have fled to Great Britain. He's a UK citizen. UK was granting citizenship to anybody who wanted to flee Hong Kong anyway, not like the US, who ignored it. And he decided to stay and fight with the people that he had funded and helped fight for freedom for years in Hong Kong. He was arrested, tried, and I think just yesterday or this weekend sentenced to 20 years. He's 78 years old, so it's a life sentence. It's a life sentence. Tragic, horrific, and you're not going to hear many people complain about it. Not many people in this administration, not even in Europe. They're just such cowards. They fear China so badly, so badly. All right, measles. The United States is experiencing right now one of the largest measles outbreaks in many, many years. And it might be the largest measles outbreak since 2000. The outbreak in South Carolina has reached 876 cases, but there's also cases across the country, in other parts of the country, even as far as North Dakota. There's been measles outbreak. But look, measles mostly you get as a kid, and you get sick for a while, and you recover. Most people recover. But in rare cases, I mean, not very, very, very rare, just rare cases, kids develop a brain swelling, and some people die. The brain swelling is already developed in some of the kids in South Carolina. And this looks like it's spreading beyond South Carolina, as I said. Now, one of the reasons for this is, the anti-vax movement has encouraged parents not to vaccinate against measles. Now, look, as I said, most kids will survive. Some kids will die. Will die. For no reason. The vaccine is widely used everywhere in the world, and you don't need to get it. You don't need to suffer. I had the measles. I suffered. It was not pleasant. If you could save your kid from suffering like I did, I had all the childhood diseases, I think, and it was not nice at all. A vaccine is 97% effective in preventing measles infection. And most people born after 1957 have received a vaccine. They got it when they were children. But there's been a significant uptick in people who are not vaccinated. Now, RFK discourages vaccination across the board. Discourages is too soft. Warns against vaccination. Even the measles vaccine. But he lies about vaccines all the time. Like the cervical cancer vaccine, he claims it causes cancer. When if you look at cancer rates, they've gone like that. They've gone sharply down since young women or I guess teenagers have gotten that vaccine. I mean, if you get measles, you have 10 to 14 days of high fever, cold-like symptoms, eye inflammation, a rash, starts at the face, spreads across the body, and it usually just goes away by itself. That's usually the case. 10 to 14 days of unpleasantness, which is bad. Anyway, it can be really, 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 really bad. Anyway, we're seeing this spread. We're seeing this spread under a regime in Washington, D.C. that does not believe in vaccination and discourages vaccination. I found it interesting that Dr. Oz, who is, what is he? He's described as a senior U.S. public health official. The good old Dr. Oz. Anyway, Dr. Oz is now calling people to get vaccinated against measles. He's calling parents to vaccinate their kids against measles. He says, take the vaccine, please. We have a solution for our problem. He writes, not all illnesses are equally dangerous and not all people are equally susceptible to these illnesses, but measles is one you should get your vaccine. Now, his boss wouldn't say that. But good for Dr. Oz for backing vaccines. I'm sure he's terrible on other things. But on this, I think what happens is Health and Human Services figures they'll talk about both sides of their mouths. They'll give mixed messages in terms of who you want to listen to, and then they can shrug and say, oh, to the anti-vax people say, oh, we're against vaccines. And then to the pro-vax people say, oh, look, Dr. Oz just recommended the vaccine. They've got their bases covered, their asses covered, in other words, so they won't be held responsible for whoever dies from this. Really pathetic. I did want to say we will have Amish on the show at some point. Probably now March or April, to talk about RFK and Dr. Oz and just what's going on at HHS more broadly. So looking forward to that. We'll get an insight from the inside of the medical profession into the Health and Human Services and what is going on there. All right, let's immigration. There's just been a number of stories today on kind of the economic impact of mass deportation. What are the economic impact of mass deportation? You expect wages to go up and the country to thrive. Things will be amazingly good once we get rid of all these illegals. That's what we're told, right? That illegal immigrants lower wages, reduce economic prosperity. They suck resources out of state, local, federal government, make us all poorer. Anyway, there's been a paper published in the National Bureau of Economic Research. It's a working paper. It's not published yet. This is the abstract. This paper qualifies the effects of large-scale deportation on wages, prices, and real incomes in the United States. We impute the legal status of each worker in the American Community Survey by combing detailed individual information with group-level visa records. In 2024, 3.2% of U.S. workers were unauthorized, but some regions and sectors were heavily dependent on unauthorized immigrant labor. We developed a dynamic quantitative framework with multiple regions, sectors, occupations, heterogeneous workers, and endogenous capital accumulation, da-da-da-da-da. We derive an analytic expression, and it goes through the model and how they do it. And, following the removal of 50% of unauthorized immigrants, in the short run, average native wages rise 0.15% nationally, driven by an increase in the capital labor ratio. In the long run, however, native real wages fall in every state by, on average, 0.33%, that's on a national level, as capital gets decumulated in response to a lower population. Consumer prices in the sectors intensive in unauthorized workers, such as farming, rise by about 1% to the price of the average consumption basket, while most other sectors experience negligible relative price changes. In other words, if you deport a significant number of illegal immigrants who are working, wages go down over the long run, and prices go up over the long run. Not a good outcome. Not a good outcome. Immigrants, including low-wage immigrants, including exploited illegal immigrants, don't lower wages of Americans. They raise them. Maybe not in that particular profession that they compete in, but in all other professions where they become consumers. And they actually lower prices in those sectors where they work because they provide more abundant labor. Here's another story in the Wall Street Journal. When was this written? Today, I think. I think it was published today. Oops. Give me a second here. Why is this doing this? Constantly wants a password or something. I mean, it's just a hassle to get into these things. Come on. Anyway, we'll leave that. We don't need it. All right. This is a story from Waco, Texas. It's a story about South Texas. South Texas is generally booming. A lot of construction of new homes. Well, that construction has slowed dramatically, as aggressive immigration enforcement has shrunk the workforce. Everybody said, oh, Americans will do the jobs of the illegals. Where are they? So whole subdivisions, workers won't come to work, either because they've already been deported or because they're afraid to be deported. The same is true in farming and in other parts of the economy. So this is a region, South Texas, that is very affected by illegal immigrants. They cross right into South Texas. It's also an area that is being significantly, negatively impacted by the deportation of those immigrants and the rounding them up in the workplace. Rounding illegal immigrants who work and sending them home is a massive drain on the U.S. economy. And because it's being done as aggressively it's being done, it actually involves even greater harm. Because a lot of people are not going to work because they're afraid of being rounded up. Even U.S. citizens, even legal migrants, they don't want to be harassed by ICE. They don't know what ICE is going to do to them. Make America inhospitable? Fewer people will come. We're already seeing it with tourism, which crashed last year. And you'll see it in those markets that have dependent immigrants for their labor. All right, that is the news for this February 9th, Monday, February 9th. Thanks tuning in. We're going to move to our super chat in a minute. Let me just note, we did very well the first hour. We're about $100 short of our second hour goal. So please consider supporting the show. $20 questions. In particular, it's only five $20 questions that get there quickly, or if somebody wants to put down $50, that will get us even faster to that goal. This will be a great few reminders first. Greg Salamieri will be on the show tonight, 7 p.m. East Coast time. We'll be talking about America. Its past, its present, state of America, how we got here. That'll be Greg tonight. I also want to let you know that, so don't miss it. It's going to be fun, and bring your philosophical questions, or bring whatever questions you have, but certainly anything you need a philosopher to answer versus me, bring it. I also wanted to let you know that on February 28th, I will be in London, and I will do a seminar on capitalism. Kind of maybe advanced topics in capitalism, or different issues under capitalism, how it works. So, consider signing up. Bring your questions. It'll probably be afternoon, so 1 to 5. And then we'll all go out to dinner together, so sometimes to socialize. So maybe 1 to 5:30, 6, and then we'll go to local pub or restaurant and hang out. So you'll get a lot of time. Bring lots of questions. I'm hoping many of you will sign up and comment. It's going to be about £300 for the 4+ hours. And let's see, hopefully it'll be up on my website, the information up on my website tomorrow, day after, early this week. And I'm hoping we can get, 5, 10, 15 people. I don't want it more than 15, I guess, to come and participate and talk about capitalism. And I really want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. I might ask you in advance for topics you would like me to cover. So we'll make it interactive like that. So that will be happening February 28th in London. All right, sponsors of the show, Ayn Rand Institute, Porto Conference. You got to come to Porto Conference. My understanding is not a lot of you have signed up. I don't know what's going on. Porto is a great city. If you're in Europe, it's easy to get to. Ryanair, lots of flights. If you have to pay, you get a 10% discount by using the Yaron Brook Show discount coupon, 26YBS10, 26YBS10. If you're under 34, you can apply for a scholarship. Many of you should be applying for scholarships. Anybody under 34, and I know a lot of you who will listen to me are under 34. You can come from the U.S. But again, Europe is really cheap to come. I'm sure you can get a hotel for cheap in Porto. Certainly, the conference hotel might not be cheap, but it's not super expensive either. It's a nice hotel. And those of you who can afford it, come hang out in Porto. We're gonna have a good time. It's a beautiful city, good food, lots of places to visit, and I think good content. I think the schedule is going to be revised a little bit into the program. It'll be me and Ankar and Tal will be there. I'll be doing a bunch of stuff, giving a bunch of talks. So yeah, I want to hang out with you guys, and I think you'll enjoy my lectures and Q&As and panel discussions, and it'll just be a blast. So AynRand.org/start here. AynRand.org/start here. Porto Ayn Rand Conference 2026. Join us and tell your friends about it. If you know people in Europe, tell them to come. But you can also, if you're in the East Coast, Porto is like, nothing. It's just around the corner. I think there are direct flights even, but there's certainly direct flights to Lisbon, which is another beautiful city. Beautiful city. All right. Let's see. Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is the #1 expert in the world on fossil fuels, electricity, power generation, and everything else related to issues around environmentalism and climate change. Check him out, alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com. Alex is phenomenal. You'll learn so much by reading him. You'll gain a much greater appreciation for fossil fuels and a great appreciation for the damage being done right now by environmentalist advocates and by alternative energy advocates, by anti-nuclear advocates, to the American economy, to America. How much better everything could be, and how much more expensive electricity is going to become because of all these so-called advocates. DefendersOfCapitalism.com. Check out DefendersOfCapitalism.com. This is the website created by Michael Williams, a program created by Michael Williams. I'm involved. We teach the program to leadership program of the Rockies. But check out the website. I think you'll find there a bunch of interesting information about the program and about how to defend capitalism. We'll talk about that in my seminar as well. So you should come to my seminar in London. Even if you're not in London, fly over from wherever you are, Amsterdam or Paris, or I don't think I know anybody in Paris, but Amsterdam or Sweden or Denmark or Switzerland. You should come and join us in London. London's a great city, and it'll be a nice weekend. I cannot guarantee the weather. Nobody can guarantee London weather. But you know the company is going to be amazing. And there's a lot of fun things to do in London, and if you're not from there, I can let you know what. I can send you a list. Finally, HendershotWealth.com /YBS. Hendershot Wealth, one word, two T's in Hendershot. HendershotWealth.com /YBS for information about investment products, but primarily this product that can save you a lot of money on taxes, capital gains taxes. And check them out. Check out in particular the interview I did with Robert Hendershot in my playlists on my channel on YouTube, playlists under sponsors. All right, and then finally, don't forget Super Chat and don't forget stickers. We need about $100 to make it to our second hour. We're already in the second hour. So $104 to be exact is what we're short for this particular second hour. We've got a lot of questions at the $2 and $5 level and $10 levels. What we need is 5 questions at $20, 2 questions at $50. You guys can do it. Or you can just do a sticker at any amount you want. $2, $1, $5, $10, $100, $500. So bring in the stickers as well so that we can make our targets. This show is funded through the support of you. We trade value for value. I deliver these. You get them for free nominally, but you should show appreciation by trading with me. I will add that you can also trade with me by going to patreon.com, and becoming a monthly supporter. Monthly regular supporter, that is great, very much appreciated. Any amount you want from $2 to $1,000 a month is fantastic, and that is how I can do the show. I cannot do the show without the support. Cannot do the show unless we meet our targets on Super Chat, on Patreon, on PayPal. We even have a Subscribe Star that you can sign up if you don't want to use these other platforms. I think that's it. I think we're ready to answer your questions, but there should be more questions. All right, Hopper Campbell. $100. Thank you, Hopper. This is fantastic. Really, really appreciate the support. All right, Hopper says, this is the horrific dilemma that both right and left face. In order to take power away from Trump, to really take it away, they'd have to lock it away from themselves. And they don't seem to be up for that. Unlimited power will be fine if we just reform it. Yeah. And look, this is how we got into this problem, right? This is how we got Trump. We gave more power to JFK. Well, not JFK, not RFK. Right? To Roosevelt, not to the Kennedy. And then we gave more power to Johnson. And then we gave more power to Bush, and then Obama. And then Trump used all that power to gain more power and to make government even less limited. And nobody has stood in the way of any of them. And nobody's demanded anything. And then Trump said when he came back to power that he would do even more of the taking of power. And we said, okay, we'll vote for you anyway. So look, I mean, all of this is the fault of the American people at the end, and the fault of the American intellectual who guide the American people, the intellectuals who shape the culture. But the reality is, until we, the people, rebel, until we, the people, demand that government be reined in, then what do we expect? It's only going to get worse. And every side of the political, every of the spectrum, supposed spectrum, the make-believe spectrum, will try to suck as much power as they can, abuse as much power as they can, until we rebel, until we say stop. And that is going to need real intellectual leadership. Real intellectual leadership. So, and we don't have that. We don't have that. But yes, Harper, you're absolutely right. It's really, really hard once you get to unlimited power to move to limited power, because the people who run for politics in this environment have no interest, no incentive to move us towards more limited power, because they're the direct beneficiaries through their so-called enjoyment of the power and through blatant corruption of that power that they have. So it's very hard, short of some kind of revolution. What's needed is an intellectual one. But the fear is, of course, that we land up with some kind of violent one, which would not be good. Thank you, Harper Campbell. Thank you for the $100. Really, really appreciate that. Adri, thank you for the $50 sticker. That is incredibly generous. Adri by himself is taking us halfway to our goal. So we're now only looking for $54 in terms of getting to our goal. Nature Observer, thank you for the sticker. And let's see, who else do we have? Not a lot of stickers today. Where are you sticker people? I'm looking for sticker people. People don't want to ask questions. AJ, thank you for the sticker. Appreciate that. Canadian dollars. Roland, thank you for the sticker. And I think I'm caught up. Yeah, there's Nature Observer. All right. So jump in, guys. 155 people watching. Jump in with $1, $2, $3 stickers, and we will make this goal. We blow it up. All right, $20 questions. We went from $100 questions to $20 questions. Again, Harper Campbell. Wow, thank you. Does operating on the perceptual level have to lead to hatred and ultimately violence? The fear and anxiety accumulated for not being able to grasp the world conceptually morphs into rage and ultimately brutishness. Yes, absolutely, right? We've been talking about this for years and years and years. When you can't understand the world, and at the perceptual level you cannot, and remember, the perceptual level is really the level of simple abstractions. This is why conspiracy theories are so popular, because they give explanations. And the biggest conspiracy theory in history is religion. They give explanations to people who don't want to, who've chosen not to think, not to abstract, not to achieve, because it's an achievement, the conceptual level, the level of higher abstractions. So what happens when you can't do that is you feel fear, anxiety. You gravitate towards tribes and conspiracy theories. And the conspiracy theories don't really work. Or in order to justify them, they become more and more bizarre and more disconnected from reality, which makes you more anxious and more afraid. And that ultimately, there's a real risk that all of that ultimately morphs into, well, we can't explain or understand or change or impact the world with our mind. Therefore, what's the alternative? The alternative is force. The alternative is force. It's violence. It's brutishness. And of course, part of all this is hate of the other, because part of the preconceptual mentality, part of the perceptual level mentality, is a zero-sum mentality. Those others are taking our stuff, they're taking our jobs, they're taking our women, they're taking out, I don't know, they're taking our country. So we hate them. And the other is always part of the conspiracy theories. Rise in anti-Semitism, rise in anti-immigration, rise in hatred goes along with the fear and anxiety and rage, anger. And if you look at the dominant emotion, what is the dominant emotion of MAGA? The dominant emotion of MAGA is anger. It's anger. All right, we made our second hour goal. Thank you, guys. We've made it. Now we strive towards that third hour. $250 more to go. We've got quite a few questions, so I'm going to be here for a while. Not your average algorithm. I was in England for the first time, and when discussing politics, they overwhelmingly embrace, without question, that the state exists to aid the poor and provide health care. At least in America, there is still debate about it. Yes. I mean, I don't know that there's much debate about helping the poor in America. I think we've got a pretty... And if you replace the poor with the old, America is even more corrupt there than England. I mean, basically, America is a massive redistribution machine, taking money from young people and giving it to old people. Basically what we do. The biggest expenditures of the government are Social Security and Medicare, and those are old people stuff. And where do they get the money? From working age people. So it's not your money that's being saved that is your Social Security. It's money being taken right now from somebody young and given to you. But yes, healthcare in particular, NHS in particular, is a religion in the UK, and they don't question that at all. In the US, the viability of socialized medicine is at least put in question, is challenged, whereas in the UK, yeah, you can't challenge it. They freak out, they go nuts. Literally go nuts. Not your average algorithm. Was the Holocaust, Super Chat won't let me say it, Holocaust. Was the Holocaust the only organized genocide in history? The rest were impulsive and chaotic, like Khmer Rouge and Rwanda. I mean, it's not, I don't think that it was the only premeditated genocide in history, organized genocide. It was the most industrialized. So certainly the pogroms against Jews in other places were not usually sporadic and impulsive and chaotic. They were usually organized, but they weren't industrial and they weren't systemic. The Armenian genocide was intentional and organized, but again, not systemic and not industrialized at scale and industrialization. So that's what makes it unique. It's that taking the brilliance of German engineering and German efficiency and applying it to exterminating a people. Right? Whereas in other places, people were just shot. Yeah, chaos is right. But so it was unique in many respects, the way you identify. But industrialization is part of it, right? Systematization is part of it. Clark, if you focus on things you can't control for too long, you'll turn to violence. It's a source of a nihilistic mindset. Well, I mean, not necessarily. A lot of people don't turn to violence. Violence is relatively minor in our society. Overt violence. But yes, that is the way. I mean, if you focus on things you can't control, you get upset, you get angry, you get frustrated, and you lash out through physical violence. When reason gives out, what are you left with? So yes, it's not deterministic, but it certainly is a precursor. Michael, can reason never die? Well, I mean, we could extinguish human race from the planet. Reason is unlikely to die. It seems to survive in one corner of the earth or another, pretty much always. Rome falls, Golden Age of Islam rises, that falls, the Renaissance in the West happens, West falls, who knows where the Golden Age will be next time. So, as long as we can preserve the writings of the Greeks, and in particular the writings of the modern engineers and scientists, and the writings of Ayn Rand and the Enlightenment, reason will not die. Somebody will discover it somewhere and keep it alive, keep the flame alive. Michael, how have Americans been able to resist socialized medicine for this long, particularly after all the regulations and subsidies have made private insurance so insanely expensive? I think there's just a feeling among Americans. It's at the level of emotion more than anything else, that they don't want the government, that they don't like socialism. It's at that level. And healthcare seems to be a step in the road to socializing everything. And they resist it as a consequence. They don't resist socialization in other realms, but healthcare seems to be big enough, important enough, that they resist it. Now, there have been some close calls. I mean, Hillary Care almost passed. Obamacare was bad, although not as bad as it could have been. And there's real resistance. People value being able to choose their doctor. People value being able to choose between insurance policies. There's still that sense in America. We don't want to give all the power to the government. And even Medicare is structured in a way that you have some choice. Medicare in the United States is not like the NHS. That's why it's so expensive. Medicare, the NHS assigns you a doctor, and you go where you're told, and you do what they're told. Medicare, you can go to different doctors. You can fly to a clinic somewhere and get treated. You have a lot of agency. NHS doesn't give you agency. Americans still insist on agency, and that has prevented the system from becoming totally socialized. Now, to average algorithm, two-part question. I agree with you that Americans will embrace narcissism to overcome their altruism, while Europeans seem to accept the altruism. However, I do find Europeans more adult and pleasant to talk to because they don't operate under this immature narcissism that makes it impossible to see things from someone else's perspective. I mean, for the most part, I think that's true. Americans tend to be immature. Americans tend to be ignorant too. I mean, one of the advantages in Europe is the educational system is better. They know more. They travel more. They've seen more of the world. They understand more. They're corrupted by philosophy, corrupted by altruism and collectivism, corrupted by socialism. But at a certain level, they are more mature and better educated. You can talk about history. You can talk about ideas. And they know the references. They know the history. They know the intellectuals you're talking about. Americans are mostly ignorant of all of that. Mostly ignorant of all of that. Andrew, we often hear how conversations can be had about deeper political questions. But for now, we need to deal with the concrete event du jour. The deeper questions are never addressed as we cycle through one event after another. Yeah, I mean, and the reason is that they have no answers to deeper questions. They have no ideas about the deeper questions. Everybody says we need to solve Social Security and Medicare. Nobody will propose it because nobody has any ideas on how. Or nobody wants to fight on how because they don't have the philosophical context. So it really is, everybody is stuck. There's no pressure. But yes, absolutely. Nobody ever deals with the deeper questions. They don't want to. They avoid them like the plague. It'll reveal how empty they really are. Jennifer says, I can't discuss the difference between romantic sensual art and just vulgarity. It's like I know the difference when I see it. Is it concentrating on just physical and no genuine emotions and expression? Yeah, and no relevance to a story. So, one of the things about porn is that sex is the topic. There's no context for the sex. Yeah, some porn has a story, but the story is an excuse for the sex. Whereas sex in a proper movie, where it's art, has a purpose. It's part of the context of the movie. It's part of the theme. It's part of the story. Whatever's being expressed through the sex, even when it's depicted, is meant to tell part of the story. The intimate nature of their relationship, the way they deal with sex, femininity, masculinity, whatever, depending on the story and what's going on. So, or a sculpture can be erotic if it's trying to say something beyond just presenting you with the physical aspect of the sex. It has to have a larger theme. It has to project something more meaningful than the act of sex itself. Now, I think some, particularly when it's not as, when it's not as vulgar and graphic as porn can, you can have erotic art where the theme is something about the sex. But then, it has to have aesthetic value. It has to be done with some beauty. It has to be done with some artistic flair. It has to be done in an interesting way. I mean, most porn is boring because it's repetitive. It's the same, and it has zero aesthetic value. There's zero attempt at aesthetic value. It's just not interesting. I mean, other than maybe to learn new positions that you didn't know existed. But so it has to have an aesthetic component. It has to have something to say, something meaningful to say, even if that something to say is about sex. See, you can have a work of art that is about sex, and therefore has to depict sex. If it's about sex, sex is an important part of human life. It can't be that sex is the one part of human life that is never depicted. But it has to be done in a way an artist would do it, not in a way a pornographer would do it. And, so you have to have a real aesthetic value. Is Bad Bunny vulgar? I don't know. I mean, I find a lot of the dancing, but that's not Bad Bunny. That's just modern. The same with the dances at Shakira's performances or any of these. There's a certain element of vulgarity to the dancing, but there's no attempt at. But that's true of popular music to a large extent. The popular music is vulgar, not in a sense that it's, in a sense that it doesn't really. There's no real any deep values there. It's simple, and it appeals to our lowest common human denominator. Beat, and dance, but dance that is the most primitive of the dances in the sense that it exudes sexuality but nothing else. There's no deeper meaning if you compare it to even modern dance, from modern dance performance or of course ballet or even ballroom dancing or anything like that. It doesn't exhibit romance and sensuality. It exhibits just sex, humping, right? That's all you get from it. All right, AJ, as an Iranian who refuses to live meaninglessly, how long should one rationally rely on the world's moral progress versus one's own agency? Well, you should always rely 100% on your own moral agency. I mean, you can't be dependent when it comes to morality on the world. You must only depend on yourself when it comes to morality, and hopefully the world will catch up to you. Right? But that's, yes, I don't quite understand the question. You have to concretize it a little bit. But you have to rely on your own agency. So Iranians in Iran, yeah, they have to find a way to make their revolution work and not rely on the world, because I'm not sure. I mean, maybe the world will be there, but even then, they'll still have to do the hard work, because you won't get troops on the ground. So Iranians will have to do the hard work themselves. AJ, have you considered pitching the Yaron Brook Show to Netflix now that it's streaming podcast? No, I need to check that out. I'll think about it and check it out. Thanks. I didn't know they were doing that. Michael, is ICE more like the SS or the SA? What's the difference? I can't remember. I don't like these comparisons. I don't find them very useful. In any case, ICE is still much narrower, less violent, in spite of its violence, less offensive than either one, would be my guess. A.B. Schmidt, have you seen Far and Away from the early 90s? I recently rewatched it, and it's overflowing with sense of life. I think it's also a pertinent film given the current obsession with immigrants. Yes, I mean, I like that movie. It's got a few too many cliches, and it's a bit, what would you call it? Much of it is predictable. But I really liked the movie. I can't now remember the theme, and it used to be a movie I'd show on my movie nights, and we'd come up with a theme of the movie. It's definitely got a positive sense of life, and a positive sense of strong characters who pursue their values, who stand up for themselves, who fight. They don't roll over. So yeah, I'd say it's a movie I like and have enjoyed. Liam, are we 20 or 30 years away from being Nazi Germany? How does ARI and YBS show stop this? Well, I don't know if we're 20, 30 years away from being Nazi Germany. Maybe, maybe not. I'm skeptical about history repeating itself. I doubt that we become Nazi Germany. We'll become some kind of authoritarian state, more like Putin's Russia than Nazi Germany. But how does ARI and YBS stop this? Probably can't. 20, 30 years is too short of a scale. And all we can actually do to try to stop it is what we're doing. It's developing new intellectuals, write, speak, develop new intellectuals, write and speak. That's all you can do. There's nothing else that can be done, in my view. So if you have ideas on what should be done and how it can be done, let me know. But I don't know of any other way. It's intellectual leadership. That leadership takes a long time to develop. We need to keep doing it with the resources we have, the people and the money we have. Liam, does ICE have its own jail system not subject to judges and courts where attorneys can't see their clients? It definitely has its own jail system, its own deportation centers. The judges are not the normal judges. They are judges appointed by ICE, so they are agency judges, immigration judges and immigration courts, which are specialized courts. I don't know exactly what the attorney-client thing is. I do think immigrants can have an attorney present or can be represented by an attorney in front of those courts. So, and they can see their clients, I believe. So separate judges and courts, I think attorneys can see their clients. It's a parallel legal system, like the SEC, like all of these agencies have parallel IRS. When you get sued by the IRS, you don't go into the regular court system. You go into a court system that is run by basically the IRS. James, Trump is just a thug. He does thuggish things whenever he feels he can get away with it, which appears to be most of the time, suggesting much of our population is ignorant and doesn't care. Or much of our population is thuggish. Much of it is thuggish. And they're quite happy to see him be a thug. But I agree with you. Jeremy, at Legoland this weekend, cool. I saw a shirt, I wish for you what you wish for immigrants. Yeah. I wish for you what you wish for immigrants. I like that. I'm sure it got a lot of nasty looks, if not nasty comments, right? James, from America First to America Alone, global trust in the U.S. is collapsing. Yes. And global goodwill towards America and global tourism as the consequences and global migration of highly talented people is collapsing. So yeah, all of that is collapsing. It's pretty disgraceful and discouraging. Christian Sabaton, a Swedish metal band singing about history, has great lyrics. Listen to it. You will love the song about the 6-Day War. Okay? You should pay me to review one of their songs. $100. Harper Campbell, has our Kantian education system created a generation of losers who can't make it in the world? Unsuccessful people always look for someone to blame, Jews, immigrants, etc. Yeah, fundamentally, yes. I mean, every generation has been worse in a sense of the educational system, not in a sense of income and stuff like that, but in a sense of educational system. And what's interesting is, look, you can blame young people, but the reality is that most of the MAGA are old people. They're not young. And indeed, Trump is losing a lot of the young people's support. It's a lot of old people, frustrated and afraid and ignorant. And that's the educational system, but it's also, the educational system that has trained the intellectuals and how the intellectuals train the people, whether they go through education or not, or whether they went through education now or 50 years ago. But, yep. Christian says $100 is really a fat price. Yeah, I mean, my opinion about a song is worth a fat price. I don't know. People pay me, so that's the price. If I lower the price, I don't think I'd get more. So I have to find a point of maximum revenue. I have to find ways to put food on the table. Reviewing songs is one of them. But I completely understand people who think it's a lot of money. It is. CP Milken, Trump said reimagining Penn Station was Schumer's idea. Yeah, I'm sure Schumer came up with the idea of renaming it Trump Station. That sounds exactly like Schumer. Can you imagine that Trump wanted all these things named after Trump and he wouldn't provide federal funds if it wasn't? I mean, what a narcissistic creep. Narcissistic creep. I like numbers. If any objectivist talked about group dynamics, I think our psychologists have. I mean, Gina and I has some. I mean, she talks about. She does psychology for founders, so she talks a lot about dynamics at the workplace, which is basically group dynamics. I think people like John Allison have talked about it. Again, I think it's being talked about in the context of work, in the context of teams, and groups pursuing a common objective. Christian, I'm annoyed at Trump wanting a deal with Ayatollah. I'd even prefer Iran to attack Israel. Of course, it would be better if America and Israel strike first, but the Islamic Republic must go. Thoughts? Yeah, I agree. I said that during the show. Absolutely. I mean, annoyed is too soft of a term at what I feel towards Trump and his unwillingness just to go for it and do it. All right, let's see. Not Travis Jago says psychopaths don't care about human feelings. Sociopaths don't care about human feelings. Psychopaths don't care about human life. Okay, okay. I guess I said I didn't know the difference in a previous show. Not a psychologist. I'll take your word for it. Thank you. Christian, I told Amin Navabal and Goldie Gamawi to come on your show, They are one of the best sources of the revolution in Iran. I hope one of the two will find time for you. Hope so. I'll be contacting them and see. Clark, if an orderly police officer arrests you unlawfully, you can sue them. When can you sue ICE agent for unlawful detention? Do they have full immunity? It's very difficult to sue an ICE agent. They have quite a bit of immunity. I don't know the details of all of it, and I'm not sure you can easily sue a police officer. The police have immunity as well, so you can only sue under certain circumstances for certain things. There's a big barrier to cross. It's one of the problems, I think, with policing is they have way, way, way too much immunity. And particularly if you're a federal officer. The federal officers, which I saw, have more immunity than local officers. Liam, what are some of the lower court rulings Trump and ICE have been ignoring? Well, I think it's primarily, informational. That is, the lower court says, you need to come before us and you need to do this X, Y, Z, provide us with this information, and they just don't provide the information. And there was a lawyer from ICE a week ago, I think, telling the court, we're just overloaded. We just don't have enough people. We can't fulfill all your requests because the people are not there. We're trying. We're working day and night, and we can't get you the documentation that you need. I think that's most of it. I don't know of any major issue beyond that. There's some issues going through the courts about the ones that were deported overseas, sent overseas, and there's some cases going through the courts about due process. But I think most of the lower court rulings that they're ignoring have to do with providing information. All right, Harrison. Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people because there were only neo-Nazis there. Your argument was that the protest alongside Nazis made you a Nazi too. I was paying attention to that show. Notably, this sane principle does not apply to anyone protesting alongside the race communists in my hometown of Minnesota right now. So a couple of things. I did not say that if you protest alongside Nazis, that made you a Nazi. I said that if you protest among Nazis, it made you not a very nice person. It made you a bad person. Not a Nazi necessarily, but a very bad person. And specifically, what were they protesting? Which is important and relevant to the difference with Minneapolis. What is it that they were protesting alongside the Nazis? What did they share in common with the Nazis? I never said they were Nazis. I said they weren't very fine people. They were bad people. Why were they bad people? Because they were protesting taking down Confederate statues. Taking down a statue of Robert E. Lee, who fought for slavery. I'm sorry. Fighting for keeping statues of people who fought, not just had slaves, fought violently to keep slaves makes you a bad person. I don't like people. If you think the monuments shouldn't be taken down to Robert E. Lee and to the Confederate generals, I don't consider you a good person. And you go out and protest with the Nazis, then you're not a very fine person. I mean, see what he says. Very fine people. Very fine people don't support Confederate statues and don't make an effort to go out and protest with Nazis to keep those statues up. I mean, you might sit at home and say, I'd rather they didn't take down the statues. They've been here a long time. But to make the effort to go and protest makes you a not very fine person. Now, what are the people in Minneapolis protesting? They're protesting the government not harassing hardworking people in the streets of Minneapolis. That's a good cause. So first, it's a good cause. Now, the fact that they're doing it with communists should make them pause. And I've said I wouldn't go out because I don't want to be protesting, like the No Kings demonstration stuff. I don't want to be there with a bunch of communists and a bunch of keffiyeh-wearing people, so I wouldn't do it. But with the neo-Nazis in Charlottesville, two things they had against them. One, the cause was an evil cause. And two, they were with the Nazis. At least in Minneapolis, the cause is a good cause. And yeah, it diminishes them that they're with the communists. So it's more mixed. But the one in Charlottesville, no mixture. It's pure bad. So to say they're very fine people, not so. They're not very fine people. And that's just a wink and a nod to the racists, to the people who thought the South were the good guys. It's a wink and a nod to the bad elements who were there in Charlottesville. Not all Nazis, but all bad. I guess somebody called me an unk. All right. I don't take it easy. I get passionate when I get passionate. when things, when I think things are important, and when somebody kind of misrepresents what I say. Liam, is the strong stock market from deregulation the only thing that could save Trump? This will encourage him to deregulate more. How much time will this buy us before the collapse into dictatorship? I don't know that the strong stock market will save us from a collapse. Why would it? Look, Biden had a strong stock market. In 2023 and 2024, the stock market went up both years 25% more than what it went under Trump. And he had more all-time highs than Trump. So, we can't, you shouldn't run a country, and you shouldn't come to conclusions about the state of the world and the state of politics and the long-term consequences from the stock market. The stock market is company by company. Those companies are doing well. They do even better in a free world, but they do well. It doesn't mean everybody's doing well. It doesn't mean the economy's doing well. So I don't know. I don't know that the stock market encourages Trump to deregulate more. I think he just deregulates because that's the people he's hired in the regulatory agencies, and they'll continue to deregulate. The stock market responds partially to that because they have businesses have more freedom, and that's a good thing. But I don't know that the stock market is buying us time in and of itself. It might convince people to vote for Trump-like people in the future, therefore lead us more quickly into dictatorship. Not your average algorithm. Why does Israel keep its nuclear arsenal a secret? Is it likely they will never ever have to use it? They probably will never have to use it. That's what nuclear arsenals are for. They're for deterrence. They're not for actually using. They keep it a secret because once they put it out in the open, then they'll be under huge international pressure to join the non-proliferation agreements and to agree to inspections and all of that stuff. And Israel doesn't want to do that, so they'd rather not acknowledge it. So that it's a diplomatic game. It's just diplomatic gamesmanship. That's all it is. Jason, the Prime Minister of Japan has said she's against Islamic immigration. She's a racist. No, I don't think she's a racist. I'm against Islamic immigration too. I haven't heard her exactly in what context she said that, and if she explains why she's against Islamic immigration. Islam is not a race. I know it's hard for you to get that, but Islam is not a race. And there are plenty of reasons not to accept Islamic immigration, particularly if you can't differentiate between Muslims and Islamists. But if she understands that Islamism is an enemy of Japan, and she can articulate that case, then it's fine for her to ban Muslim immigration, and I think Islamic immigration. I think that's true of any country. But you have to make the case. But I know you think you just got me. I've talked about Islamic immigration for years and years and years and years, and people still think I'm excited about it. I'm all pro it. Let them in. Please bring more Muslims into my... God, stupidity is amazing. Anem, you called vetting the essence of authoritarianism. Do you mean your call for EU Islamist vetting is demanding... Oh, here's another one. Well, why do you keep asking this question when I've answered it like 1,000 times? Could you scan my previous shows and get the answer to this question, which I've answered 1,000 times, NM? I just don't get it. When you're at war, the rules change. And we're at war with Islamism, whether we know it or not. So if we declare war on Islamism and declare it the enemy, then we can vet. And we can vet everybody because we're trying to figure out who the enemy is. During World War II, Nazis were not welcome into the United States, and it would have been okay to vet for Nazis. When we were at war with the Soviet Union, Cold War, I guess, you could vet for communism and not allow communists in. Yeah. But you have to be explicit about it. I just answered the same thing with Japan. You have to be explicit about it. Explain it. Understand that it's the exception. And vet for something that is truly a threat to the individual rights of your citizens. Islamism is such a threat. Vet for it. I'm fine with that. I've said I'm fine with that forever. But only if you recognize it as a threat and identify it as a threat and talk about it as a threat, which Europe refuses to do and America refuses to do. And when Trump does, I'm banning immigrants from these Muslim countries, and he keeps off that list the countries from which all the terrorists in 9/11 came, and the countries on the list from which all really Islamist terrorists in the United States have ever come, then he's not serious. It's not about Islamism. It's about virtue signaling to his base. Look, I did an Islamic immigration ban, which it's not. So come on, people. How many times do I have to repeat the same thing over and over again? I guess I do. I guess I just need to repeat it. I should stop complaining. All right. Dan, will Peter Attia survive the Epstein files release of emails he exchanged? I don't know. He probably will, but at a much lower profile. He probably won't lose a lot of his clients because the clients are probably mostly rich men who will probably just brush it off. We'll see if he loses subscribers. If he loses subscribers, viewers on his YouTube channel and everything else. I think he will. But will he survive? Probably with a much lower profile, much lower key. Roman, the government in Beijing instructed the Chinese banks to buy fewer U.S. treasuries. What do you make of this development? I mean, not much, because I don't think they really are doing that. I mean, it's again more virtue signaling. The Chinese have said they want governments and countries to use the Chinese currency for exchange, and and part of that is to diminish the role of the role of the dollar. None of that is actually happening, and China, nobody wants to use the yuan. What are Chinese banks actually going to do with the dollars that they have if they can't buy U.S. Treasuries? They have a lot of dollars. What are they going to do with them? So it's one thing to say that. It's very different to actually implement it. I don't think it has any consequence. What happens is the Chinese just buy the same government U.S. Treasuries, but in roundabout ways. So, for example, the amount of U.S. Treasuries owned by Chinese, explicitly, directly, has been declining for quite a long time now, for many years. But the amount of U.S. Treasuries owned by funds based in Belgium with Chinese money in them has increased almost as much. So the actual holding of the Chinese has probably not changed that much. It's just in different pools, and one pool where they're kind of hiding it, another one where they're not. It's mostly that. Run. All right, I have to translate while I read. Have you heard of the Turkish students, Muslim student, that is studying in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and said nice things about Israel, including that she's a Zionist, and the Turkish authorities have put out a warrant for her arrest? I hadn't heard about that. That's horrible. But I guess it's not surprising. I mean, Turkey is violently anti-Israel. I mean, Israel should give her, citizenship. Just as a friendly gesture, they should give an Israeli passport. But yeah, I mean, it's truly horrible. Turkey is becoming an Islamist state run by an Islamist president who is supportive of the agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a Islamist, anti-Western civilization, anti-Israeli agenda. Paul said, I mailed you a question, YouTube won't send it. Okay, here it is. Have you seen the video on the Iranian man who made a video of himself before ending his own life? Opinion. No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. But, why did he end his own life? He could have gone out in the streets, ended it by fighting at least. That one I don't understand. If you're going to die anyway, die taking down some of the bad guys. But I haven't seen it. I'd be interested in seeing it. Ron, Rourke, refusing the bank hit hard. Refusing the bank hit hard. How do you identify your non-negotiable red lines, values you should never cross, even under extreme pressure? Well, you should never cross, you should never violate your moral principles. You should never violate your moral principles. You should never not be rational. You should never be dishonest, with the proper understanding of what honesty means. You should never violate your integrity. And that was a non-negotiable, and I think it should be now. How do you define what your integrity requires, demands? That's work. You have to define what your values are, what your important values are, what's less important to you. Integrity has to be a non-negotiable, again, but you have to think through, integrate. What is integrity? How does it apply to your life? How does it apply to things you do in your life? And that's the challenge I think you're asking about. And that's work. Right? That is really work. And it requires really understanding what your values really mean to you and what they are. But really, it's don't compromise on ethical values, ethical virtues or values. Don't ever compromise, again, your honesty, your integrity. You don't ever, not pursue rationality, even when the pressure is extreme. But that's a good topic for a show, actually. Maybe I'll do a show on that. That's a good topic for a show, to kind of chew on Rourke's decision and why he makes it. Christos, the healthiness of a culture, in my view, can largely be judged by its attitude towards foreigners. It is a sign of decay to be unwelcoming or hostile to them. I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. And it does not bode well for U.S. culture, its attitude towards them. Robert has a quote from Atlas Shrugged: "The only man never to be redeemed is the man without passion." Well, you can't claim I have no passion. Passion I have. All right, guys, thank you. John, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate that. I will see you tonight in 2.5 hours, basically, 2 hours, 45 minutes. We'll be talking to Greg Somieri. We'll be talking about America, the passion of Yaron. I like that. There should be a movie. No crucifixion, though. I refuse to be crucified. I'd rather be impaled by a Roman sword than be crucified. So fight until the end. See you tonight. If not, tomorrow, about the same time, I think. And no, tomorrow's a little later. I think it's at 3 o'clock Eastern time instead of 2 o'clock. So, but see you tonight. Tonight, you got to come tonight, all of you. Greg is a great guest. Lots of questions. Bring your philosophy questions. Bring your philosophy attitude. We're going to have fun. Bye, everybody.